Hello, and welcome to another Deck Tech, another set of games. I've got a fun one for you today. This is a game I played of Highlander High Tide. I'll get into the Deck Tech in a second. I just want to give a quick note. There's going to be some weird stuff in the actual gameplay. Originally, these games were going to be used for a longer form video, and basically due to some time constraints, I just want to get this game out for you guys to watch. So don't worry about it too much. If I'm talking about games 2 and 3, they don't exist, and I'm sorry. But this is a sweet one. I was playing against Trent. He's playing Jeskai, which is kind of the de facto like blue mid-range control deck in the format. So I think it's a really nice showing for High Tide to kind of show it against a deck you would expect to see a lot in the format, actually. So without further ado, let's get into the deck tech. This is my take on Highlander High Tide. A fun fact, this is probably the deck that I have the most reps on lifetime. When I first got into Highlander 10 plus years ago, this was the first deck that I built. I've played a lot of tournaments with High Tide. I've goldfished a lot with High Tide, and the deck has definitely changed a lot over the years. It's one of those ones where it gets kind of a sneaky card every set or two, and obviously there are some core components that never change, but yeah, it has been slowly getting better. One thing that I think is important to call out pretty early, and I probably should have sorted the lands so that you can see this, but the big thing that I've identified with High Tide, and I think it's something that's worth noting, is they just keep printing dual lands that have multiple basic land types on them. So Undercity Sewers obviously is the newest one. We also have Sunken Hollow. This one is like considerably older, obviously, but Undercity Sewers is a big upgrade. And what that means is that there's actually now 5 swamp island dual lands. And that matters a lot because it means I think you get to play a few more fetch lands. Like I think you can now pretty comfortably play the fetch lands that only fetch black mana. Previously, I think I was sometimes playing like 5 or 6 fetches, but I do think you can now play the full 7. You can just play all the black fetch lands because there's going to be a target no matter what. Whereas previously you maybe were a little more reticent to do that. That's not true anymore. So that's a big upgrade for this deck. And what it also means is that you've slowly been able to add more black cards into the deck. So, when I was first playing this deck 10 years ago, you would play Tendrils of Agony because it was a win condition. You would play Yawgmoth's because it was just so powerful that it was worth playing. And you would play Demonic Tutor because it's like the best tutor, and this deck is above all other decks in the format really singularly interested in finding one specific card. So you kind of needed to, and it felt like a necessary evil. And you only had, when I started playing it, you only had Underground Sea and Watery Grave. So you were sometimes really hamstrung by your mana, to be honest, and it felt pretty bad. And now I have 5 black cards in this version of the deck. I'm playing Vampiric Tutor as another one of my points, and Dark Petition, which has been included for a long time. I actually think if you were so inclined, you could put even more black cards in the deck now. You're up to about 12 sources, and with all the card draw in the deck, you are going to find a black source pretty reliably. So that's something kind of interesting to keep an eye on. I'm still base blue, but I think that if you wanted, you could play more black cards if you were so inclined. So what's the game plan with High Tide? What's this deck trying to do? There's sort of 3 phases of the game with High Tide. Phase 1 is just survive. The High Tide deck is dependent on getting islands into play, and there's not a great way to do that faster than just making your land drop every turn. So you'll notice we're playing 35 lands, and then we're actually secretly playing another land here in Lorien Revealed, which I think kind of counts for half. So we're playing a bunch of lands, bunch of card draw, and you really kind of need to hit your first 4 land drops in this deck to have any kind of chance of going off and winning the game. So that's phase 1, is just survive, hit your land drops. We've got cards that are in the deck to that effect. So you'll notice like you have some cheap counter spells like Mana Leak, Remand, Counterspell, and then a more powerful one in Mana Drain. This one obviously can kind of help accelerate you. And then also you've got like Blink of an Eye, you have not Peer Through Depths, sorry, Into the Roil. These are kind of cards that you're using, or Into the Roil here. These are cards you're using to potentially tempo some of your opponent's aggression. So yeah, phase 1 is survive, get lands in play. Phase 2 of the game for you typically is find High Tide. Obviously, in the dream scenario, you just draw it naturally. That's the best. But most games, you're not going to just draw it. You're going to need to either tutor for it or uh, use some amount of card selection to get to it. So we have quite a lot of card draw spells: Brainstorm, Consider, uh, Opt, Ponder, Preordain, Serum Visions, Sleight of Hand, and then even up to some of the 2-mana draw spells, right? We have like Peer Through Depths, we have Impulse. These are all really being used to get. Oh, we even have Telling Time, which is a card that I think I'm going to cut soon, but is still in the deck for now. All these card draw spells are being used to try to like hopefully get you to your High Tide, and barring that, you have Demonic Tutor, you have Vampiric Tutor, you have Mystical Tutor, you have Dizzy Spell, which is a hot one because this one can't be interacted with by counter spells. You could just transmute for the High Tide. A new addition within the last couple of years, Solve the Equation. This is a really exciting one, just a 3-mana put High Tide in your hand. We have Spell Seeker is another way that you can just put High Tide into your hand, and you're obviously very excited about that. So yeah, phase 2 is find High Tide. You have a lot of ways to do it. So pretty reliably, you're going to be able to put High Tide into your hand. And then phase 3 of the game is combo and win the game. And you're not actually obligated to try and do that like at the earliest possible time. Some combo decks are like trying to assemble A and B and jamming as quickly as possible. And with High Tide, because the High Tide is so central to your game plan and it basically always has to be your first spell, you really are looking to pick a spot where maybe you are going to have to fight a counter war, but you're planning to win. You'll notice like we are playing Force of Will. We have counter spells of our own as a way to kind of fight back. And you will sometimes need to do that. I've played cards like Giga Drowse in the past as well to really try and force through High Tide against blue decks, but usually you can just set up a situation where you push the game long enough that you're able to have High Tide plus some kind of counter magic backup or something to that effect. So unlike other combo decks where you kind of have multiple paths to victory, High Tide, you have to cast the payoff spell first, which is a little awkward. So you sometimes are waiting. And then the other thing is, it's sometimes good to wait because the more basic islands you have in play, the more mana you're going to make with High Tide, the lower your fizzle rate is. So that's important too. So once you've actually resolved the High Tide, winning is interesting. I like High Tide because it's a non-deterministic combo deck. Obviously, some people hate non-deterministic combo decks where you're like 80% to die, but your opponent could mess up, or maybe they brick, and I understand that. But for me, I find it very fun to take a lot of game actions and spin the wheels. And doing it on Magic Online is nice because it really accelerates a lot of the things like the tutoring and when you resolve a draw 7, it's resolved instantly. So that's a nice addition as well. So the actual winning the game, I just mentioned draw 7s. That's a big part of it. A lot of the time you're going to be looking to go for High Tide into Time Spiral. This is like an exceptionally powerful play where you can basically have a new grip of 7 cards. Ideally, you've got some mana floating afterwards, and you're going to have 6 untapped islands that are going to tap for 2. Other things that you can do is kind of just churn your wheels into enough spells to kill them with a Tendrils of Agonies. Obviously, like we have all these draw spells, we have all these tutors. You can sometimes just chain tutors together till you get to the point where a Tendrils is lethal. You also now have Sentinel Tower and Aetherflux Reservoir. These are spells that you can resolve before High Tide that will combo once you put the High Tide on the stack and resolve it. And what's nice about these is that these are both ways for you to win the game without actually resolving a High Tide necessarily. I said that that's one of the historic issues with the deck is that you kind of have to put the High Tide on the stack first. And Aetherflux Reservoir and Sentinel Tower both break that rule. So obviously Aetherflux Reservoir, you gain life every time you cast a spell, and you gain one life per spell you've cast this turn. Sorry, I should say. So this is also a good tool against aggro. You can sometimes just cast a couple of spells, spin the wheels, gain 6 life, and buy yourself an extra turn that way. Sentinel Tower is nice because it can actually target anything. So you can use this to kind of trim down boards while you're spinning your wheels, or you just point it at your opponent and maybe over 2 or 3 turns you lethal them with Sentinel Tower. Other things that you can do, there are some infinite combos in this deck. So if you have, I believe you need 6 lands and 1 high, yeah, so 6 lands and 1 high tide generates 1 mana per iteration with Palinchron. If you have 2 high tides going, it's obviously a lot better. It's a lot faster, but this is infinite. You can generate infinite mana, infinite store with Palinchron, and then win the game somehow. And then the other thing that I've adopted into this deck that doesn't actually require high tide to win the game is I put Hull Breacher in the deck because there's just so many draw 7s that it seemed worth it to have some kind of I win button. Now, I don't anticipate this being something that's going to survive all that often, but it's nice as a card to just have for, you're often going to not spend mana on your turn, hold up counter spells, plan to cast draw spells on end step, and you can really punish certain decks with a well-timed Hull Breacher, and the treasures can accelerate you into your tutors and stuff while allowing you to still hold up some amount of counter magic. So that's another kind of like side way that you can win the game. But there's not one really clear path towards victory. Obviously, like if you have 6 lands and you have a payoff spell, the Palinchron is an infinite combo, but in general, you're going to be sort of spinning your wheels until you find your way into a win. As far as points go in the deck, so we have Vampiric and Demonic Tutor as the 2 bigger point cards. This is the 5 of our points just in powerful tutors. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, like we just need the good cards, and this is a way for us to access them more reliably. And then there's a variety of small point cards in the deck as well. So there's Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, which are both 1-point cards, Spell Seeker, another 1-point card, Mana Drain, another 1-point card, and then Mystical Tutor, another 1-point card. These are just all, like smoothers. Obviously, Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are good ways to, especially once you have High Tide going, ways to generate advantage and get you further into the deck to find that win condition. So yeah, this is High Tide. It is a lot of fun to play. Not necessarily the most fun to play against. I've got one game for you today, but I do actually have a couple other recorded that I'm more than happy to post as well. So if you are interested, please let me know in the comments. I'll put up more for sure. But for today, please enjoy some High Tide versus Jeskai. All right, welcome to game 1. Welcome back to LJT, Jesus Christ.
We'll get there.
MTG. Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. So yeah, this is game 1 in a series of matches we're playing. I'm on a very exciting deck that you will have seen in the deck tech. Trent is on his very exciting deck that you will have seen in his deck tech. So yeah, without further ado, I mean, we'll get into it here. We have an hour on the clock. God willing, we won't need it, but but we figured we'd give ourselves maximum time.
If we need it, the game is going to be really good.
Hopefully, that's the aspiration, right?
It's worth noting that we don't know what each other are playing for this round, so
that's right. Yeah, Trent gets information in rounds 2 and 3, but not round 1. I get rogue deck value.
All right, I guess I'll go first. We're not keeping that one.
I have a snap keep. It's easy. I gotta talk very briefly to my people watching my video about why. So this hand's really good. Pretty obvious, right? It's got Island on turn 1. It's got a little bit of interaction in the counter spell. Snap is something that we could eventually use to remove like a locked piece or to keep us alive. And it doesn't have an amazing path to High Tide, which is the thing that you want more than anything else. But with Ponder and with Dark Petition, with any luck, we can get there. Oh, and Trent mulled to 5. That's good news for us. You mulled to 5. Oh, he's still deafened. All right, we'll find out. We'll find out just how bad things are getting in just a moment. Yeah, and where I'm on the draw, this is not so bad either.
I'm back. You found a 5 that is keepable.
Excellent. I will say my deck, I'll give you a slight hint. My deck is probably not one where mulliganing to 5 is going to feel as bad as it might in other matchups.
My deck is a deck that can get bailed out for mulligans to 5.
All right.
Island into Ponder.
I do like these cards, but it's almost too many of these cards.
I'm going to be honest. I kept the Sulphur Falls, and I thought it was the Spirebluff Canal.
you thought you had a turn 1 play, and then you didn't?
Yes. I was like, hell yeah, this hand is like pretty good for a 5.
Oh, Jeskai. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, Merchant Scroll.
I can get bailed out. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
I have like a called shot. I think you're playing High Tide, but I don't know.
I mean, Island is not the first 2 lands of a lot of decks in the format, that's for sure. So it's worth noting, I've deafened so that Trent can't hear me, but we're now going to probably play a bit of a dance where he knows that it's very likely that I have counter spells. So where he mulliganed to 5, like trying to deny this Ancestral Recall is sort of like priority number 1 for me. I'm going to play the Marsh Flats here because we can go get underwater sewers, undercity sewers potentially to do some filtering, also get our black source online. But yeah, I think for the time being, we're going to get to play some Drago, which where I have all these land drops in my hand, I'm more than happy to play.
How important is resolving this recall?
That's a great question. That's what I was just talking to the people about.
Yeah, like I have like I feel like missing a 3rd land drop is like not great, but also not even too bad, depending on like the type of pressure you have. Like how good your hand is. I think I'm gonna brainstorm.
I'll allow it.
All right.
End step brainstorm, fine by me.
End step brainstorm, no fetch. You know things are dire when I do it.
Yeah.
When it's something that I do, you know it's bad.
Okay, well, we found the 3rd land. That's good for you.
Yeah, the 3rd land is if I didn't hit it was going to be pretty awkward, but
the Surveil lands have been like just such a massive upgrade, I feel like, to consistency, like across all formats, like Highlander and other formats.
They're like so much better in Highlander, I think, than most formats though, because like you basically don't draw them that often.
Right, so like the opportunity cost of putting a tap land in your deck is lower.
It's just like not that high, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going for it. Counter spell. I couldn't have seen this one coming.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play this one then.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a good one.
I could have played the Remand there, but he just gets to replay the Tamiyo, and I would rather play the Consider. We're at the point now where my game plan involves we're officially in Find a Path to High Tide. The Find a Path to High Tide portion of the game. Factor Fiction's kind of interesting. This Dark Petition is turned on as like functional DT currently, so if I find High Tide, I'm like very much so ready to go. I think I will take this Factor Fiction.
First of all, I knew that they were going to be broken.
What, the Surveil lands?
Yeah, but secondly, I was like, these are High Tide lands.
They are High Tide lands.
Like, you just get more High Tide lands, which is all you want.
The fact, I was thinking about it, like, I mean, I think you have maybe sussed out what I'm playing. But it's interesting, like, it's at the point now, like, for a long time when you were playing High Tide, you could only splash 1 color, and, like, really you were, like, splashing, like, a card and a half, right? Like, you were splashing, like, Demonic Tutor, and you were splashing, sort of splashing Tendrils, although, like, really, like, you were just kind of hoping that Tendrils was going to be...
Oh, no, I misclicked. Ugh, you hate to see it.
Oh, you can't undo a Ponder. Got him.
Actually got me. This is a tough decision. So like
Yeah, I'm thinking of.
I can flip Tameo, but like you have 6 cards in hand, and that makes me go shields down. I actually think I'm just gonna play this falls and pass. Um, yeah, I think like I remember you and Jared would play Grixis High Tide in like 2015 or something,
I
but
did, but I don't think it was good.
you also and I remember when they printed the do you remember I think they're called Tango lands or like the Santa lands, like they check twice.
The ones from
But
BFC.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they printed those, and they printed ones in Amonkhet that like drastically. Sorry, just thinking. Yeah, you can just have this card. That's fine. Yeah, they added two sets, like 2 sets in a row. They added a land that actually had basic land types, and it was like all of a sudden, like, oh my god, we have
Yeah, I
four.
remember that. Yeah, like we can actually play a third color maybe. But I also remember you were playing like uh not island lands as well.
You had
Like
to, yeah, it was rough. Oh man, you might be able to hear my cat at the door. I don't know.
I can sort of hear your cat, but it's okay. I think everyone's happy hearing a cat. Um I guess I'm just buying myself out of this hole.
Yeah, more time is like sort of good for you in the sense that the longer the game goes, like more time to potentially unmulligan yourself.
I'm already unmulliganed, I think, but I'm like not you- wait, what are you remanding?
The fact or fiction.
The factor fiction?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh
Spell Pierce, oh my god. Has it all.
I always do. Actually, sorry, I don't always do. Jeskai always does though. I don't even
That's a
know like the deck's obviously good, but like how many times they have it all is it might just be a feature of the deck.
um hmm. So like I could like sort of go for it here. You only have 3 cards in hand, down 2 counter spells. There's a Tameo in play. I don't think it's right. I'm gonna deafen for a second and talk about what the line would be. So like technically I could go fetch for Underground Sea, cast Dark Petition. I'm gonna assume everything resolves because Trent only has 3 cards and he's tapped out of blue. So I could go Dark Petition for High Tide, have 3 black floating, cast High Tide, cast Snap, but it's just so bad, I think. There's just no way that it works. Yeah. Oh, and now Trent is deafened. No doubt talking about the fact that the last 2 cards in his hand are like Force of Will blue card.
I deafened because I was like I think it's actually really interesting if I give my input on what I think you should do as well in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's
Um
it's a good idea.
okay. No respect.
No respect.
Taking 2.
Oh, that's -1 tendrils required. Um, Now you have the same. Do I try to flip Tameo question?
I actually think flipping Tameo might not even be that good. Oh, this card's sick.
Thirst for Discovery? Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Well, you just have so many basics, right? Like,
Yeah. It's a bit weird because you actually like sort of don't want to discard basic lands all the time.
that's true.
Holy. Okay.
Like hitting like an amount of lands is really important, obviously.
Yeah, like
So
there's a density of lands that you want to have. I will say though, like I do think I'm like at that density.
Yeah, 7's definitely enough. Like you can win off of like 5 or whatever, but like the difference between having 5 or 6 or 7 is so steep in like Lander High Tide specifically, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't always have multiple copies like right away.
Ooh, I drew a new card. That's exciting.
Oh, what's happening? I, oh, Micromancer. That's fascinating.
Not that exciting.
Um,
I think it's pretty safe to just allow to resolve. Um,
yeah, no, no notes. I think I'm gonna have to do this one. I think I do it 3 times, right? Oh, what? Oh no, sorry. Figuring out how to cast spells on Moto.
oh, okay. Lose focus.
The Micromancer's not that bad though, because you're not under any pressure right now. So like you just like got me to get rid of a pretty good counter spell in this matchup. Like
Yeah. I'm not unhappy about that happening for sure.
and you still have 3 mana to continue to like develop or
I have 4 mana
research or
even.
whatever. Oh wow. This is
Yeah,
also like an insanely good Mystic Sanctuary deck too.
yeah. Essentially, like the High Tide has just like it's kind of funny. It's not a deck where like every set a card comes out and you're like, this is a High Tide card. But when the High Tide cards do come out, you're like very excited about them. Speaking of, this is one of the
Oh, this is
ones.
a new card. Okay, what's
Yeah.
going on
So
here?
this is a new one that I added. This is Lock and Load. It's
Oh, this card is hype.
yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
And it also like this is kind of like the use case where it's like especially exciting because like
Yeah, like we're
obviously
in a controlling game and you get to
yeah.
just like cast a bunch of spells and draw like 4 or 5 cards.
And I also get to like plot it and being able to like kind of like put my mana on layaway in this matchup where that matters a lot is also really nice.
Or
Um
like if on turn 4 you can just plot it and I may have held up counterspell
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's
That's what I
like
mean. That's what I mean. Like
the
you
time
basically
walk,
like
yeah.
yeah. Like here obviously it's less good because like you were tapped out. Like I would have preferred to resolve a Factor Fiction or some other. Oh god, I might just die. Uh,
Okay, let's do it. One time. Healer?
five.
Oh, I'm just doming you.
I mean, you got to kill me eventually.
That's true.
Uh,
I mean, I think that's the best one for you. Actually, Squirrels is probably the best one for you.
um, I think I would rather just take damage because squirrels put like more of a clock on me in my head, at least.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, this is quite good.
I think it's possible earlier in the game I should have flipped Tamio. I thought flipping Tamio was kind of bad initially.
Yeah.
But I think it might have been good. I don't know. It because I think it's pretty unlikely if that I die from like 4 or 5 lands from my perspective.
hmm
Um but I thought like flipping her would actually be bad because I wanted the consistent clues, but I was kind of mana tied, like or
Yeah, like
my mana was like
the fact that
tied
it
off.
costs 2 every time to get a clue is like kind of rough.
My Tamio. And if she wasn't a creature, you couldn't snap her. Good thing about lock and load is it's a sorcery, so I'm not getting immediately blown out here. But
No,
you only have 1 card in hand, which is
yeah, but
I don't know
it could be
what
anything.
happened there, but it could be anything.
Well, I've
I
just
guess
played
I'm
lands. I
still.
have 9 lands in play.
Oh yeah, that's true. You've just been land
I haven't
happy.
missed a land drop yet.
Okay, I guess I'm just taking counter spell. Um,
Yeah, that was the worst case scenario for me.
yeah, that's for
Was
sure the worst case. I think this is also the worst case.
yeah, that's fine. I have 9 lands in play. If I can't win, like if this had come down on turn 4, I was like very
That's
dead.
true.
Uh, but you know, You'd like to hope that you could find a way to win.
Oh, do you play do you maybe play the blue moon card, like the
The
harbor
Harbinger, I
harbinger?
thought about it. This deck used to play like the back to basics plan.
I
To be
remember,
honest, I
yeah, that's like
can't remember whether it's in my list. I think it's not. Uh, he
that's kind of
says,
why I asked though, you know, like
yeah, you're trying to get extra info.
well, I'm just getting like I'm just wondering what your sick tech is, you know. I will say lock and load is actually like so hype.
Yeah,
Like this
Lock and
card's
Load
so,
is like one
I've
of the
like never
pretty
seen it
exciting new
before.
cards. Okay.
Also, it's just 3 mana, which when you're going off is actually like not that much,
No,
depending
it's
on
not.
how hard you're going.
It's
Because like
it's
a lot of the time, your problem is like you have a ton of mana, but you don't know what to do with it, right?
yeah.
And so like, oh, Echo. Well, I guess I have to,
Yeah.
but you do still have it if you want it.
Yeah, I think I do want it.
I agree. I think you want it as well.
I mean, obviously, if you have another counterspell, it's a bit awkward, but
I just think you're too far behind to like you're probably gonna need that 3 mana like
well,
next turn.
yeah. I will say the last card in my hand is a good card. Like, I'm not
Oh
in
sure, like
love
you're
with.
not giving it away for nothing.
Oh, I flipped your Tameo for you.
Yeah, but that it doesn't matter because I don't have anything in my graveyard, right?
Yeah. I
It's
could
actually
lock.
better for you because I get one less draw.
I could
I
lock and load for 2, but I will decline to do so.
also think this is good because like my deck has a bunch of creature removal in it that like I could theoretically draw, right? It's not that I
Hmm.
know Jeskai always has it, but uh,
Yeah, well known fact about Jeskai. They do in fact always have it.
uh,
Um, but I also just felt like I needed to kind of like churn a little bit because like by having Reservoir in play, you get this luxury of like if you just cast 3 spells, you're like up 6 life, right? Which is like maybe enough that it buys you an extra turn. Oh, nice. Best possible for me.
I guess I should have like potentially cast something before I did that.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. Like this one, for example.
Get it in there.
Let's see. Let's get rid of. I actually want to keep this one and this one, I think. Let's get rid of this and this.
Once we get to my turn, I'm gonna have to deafen. There's a lot of I have some tanking to do, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
that's
tank out
fine.
loud for the sake of the people.
I'll deafen as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it in the graveyard. Don't care about that one.
You don't want card selection at this stage in the game?
Don't need it. Hand is perfect.
Oh, that's terrifying to hear.
It always is. All right, I'll
All
see
right,
you in a
I'll
bit.
see you in a bit. Yeah. Okay, so the big considerations here are like you just have to assume that Jeskai has at least one, probably more than one counterspell in hand. So Trent has 7 mana. I'm kind of assuming that this demonic tutor is going to eat a counter basically 100% of the time. And probably the Snapcaster Mage will eat a tutor, might eat a counter as well. What's kind of interesting is I don't actually need either of those to resolve necessarily this turn. Because I think what I'm probably trying to do is I might just be trying to like get there on the fair Aetherflux Reservoir. I just have so many lands in play that it's going to be challenging like for him to kill me if I just cast 4 or 5 spells this turn and I keep cantripping through. So in some weird ways, like the drawn into from dreams and the telling time might be more important. I think I'm gonna start with brainstorm though, because like my hand could improve by so much. And then we'll go from there. Odds are he doesn't counter the brainstorm because he suspects there are other things available. I'm not playing this land yet because I might find a fetch land. Okay, yeah. See, so this Spellseeker is exactly the type of card that I was talking about. And now I have kind of a weird choice. The Telling Time is nice because it's cheap. The Drawn from Dreams is a much better card in terms of being digging a little bit deeper. I think I kind of like keeping the Into the Royal because if I just bounce this Seasoned Dungeoneer, I'm like, it's like basically Time Walk. Like none of the cards in his graveyard matter that much for the Tameo and Comets on 1 loyalty. So I think I'm going to lean towards just putting back the Telling Time. Cast Sapphire Medallion. If this resolves, then I'm pretty happy. I think this is probably going to eat a counterspell. Although what's interesting is this is maybe an interesting opportunity to get a sense of what the power level of his hand is like because okay, Reprieve, yeah. So having Reprieve means that down to 5 mana. I am just going to cast the Sapphire Medallion again. It's also worth noting that I have the lock and load sitting in the wings there, ready to pop off. So that's worth keeping track of as well. Yeah, up to 17. Okay, so now I think I fetch for the Underground Sea, and I cast the Spellseeker. I'm going to lead on the weaker of my 2 tutors. The Demonic Tutor is a much higher impact card. Again, I don't actually really care that much if this resolves, I don't think. It is resolving, which is kind of a fascinating sign of weakness on his part. So like, okay. This is the fun part. This is where playing this deck on Magic Online is much nicer than playing it in paper because I can look at what all my options are very clearly. So like level 1 is you just get High Tide and you start playing the game from a state of having High Tide. It's worth noting I have no untappers currently. So like if I get High Tide, it doesn't actually meaningfully improve my ability to go off this turn. Like I don't have anything to untap with. I don't have any counter spells. I think I'm probably just still grabbing it though. The other option that was there is that I could do something like take Gataxian Probe and try and get a read on what the strength of Trent's hand is. But I'm just going to do this, and I'm not even going to cast the High Tide this turn. I'm just going to Into the Royal with Kicker. Gain some more life. Maybe bounce the Seasoned Dungeoneer. Maybe it gets countered, but if this is eating a counter, I'm like very happy. And play this Brawl. The next spell gains 8 life, so I can go to 40. I've made my land drop already. Huh, it's possible I didn't want to kick that, hey? Maybe if I didn't kick it, I could potentially have won the game this turn. Because there's not enough free spells in my deck that this lock and load is any good. It also is only drawing 2. The lock and load's actually not that good this turn. All right, well, I'm at 31. I think it's just kind of fine to be at 31, have this Brawl in play, have this Sapphire Medallion in play. Oh, Vendilion Click. Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. That's a card that makes this line worse. Fortunately, my hand is strong, so taking the High Tide matters less than it would for some hands. But, ooh, Narset. Okay, so Narset is interesting because now we can kind of play to a sort of secondary win condition too, which is that if we can get Narset in play and wheel, okay, that's gonna take out the Brawl, sure. Yep. So I'm at 32. All right, I'm gonna unmute or undeafen and see how Trent's feeling. Exciting turn, right?
Yeah, I was just talking a lot about how like really interesting that turn was.
And then you got to see my hand, so we could just talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm trapping you. I was saying how good this Aetherflux reservoir has been for you.
Yeah, that's what I was
Which is
talking about too, actually,
buying
is
you
that
so much time. Like you
yeah.
just get to like spin your wheels, try to like run out my counter spells,
Yep.
and then like continue to reload. Like you didn't even have to cast lock and load that turn, and your lock and load turn like in the future is still going to be really good.
Lock and load there was only for 2 cards because I cast a lot of spells, but not very many of them were.
Oh,
It
it's
only counts instants
instants
and
and
sorceries.
sorceries,
So I
not
thought about it. I think
non-creature.
if I had been +1 mana, I might have thought about doing it because if I find another 1-drop spell, I go to like 48 life or something and like start to put you on the like if I cast 2 spells next turn, you're just getting reservoired.
Yeah, my comet just
Inted.
rip.
Just ran it
So I can
down.
return reprieve here.
Yeah. I was thinking, I don't think I said it out loud, but when I tutored for High Tide and then didn't cast it, I was like, in my head, I was thinking the only card that really punishes this is Vendilion Click.
Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I was like, I don't know when the right time to cast this click is, but I don't think it's draw step. Like,
No.
unless you drew Natty High Tide, I think it's better to just wait.
Hmm.
Um, this is an interesting turn. This reservoir is actually kind of a little scary, but I don't think it's scary enough. I think I'm just gonna play this one.
Expel? Oh, Murktide Regent. Okay.
Yeah, it's like whatever. It's fine. I get my reprieve back. Like,
Hmm.
we're just playing
Oh,
a
tight
long,
play, tight
complicated
play. Get
game.
the
Yep,
extra counter on the Murktide as well.
yeah. Look at that.
You love to see
Could
it.
could could matter, I guess. When you bounce the season dungeoneer, I was like, yeah, this game isn't about this guy anymore. Like I don't care. Like
Yeah,
sure.
that
Like
just
it's
wasn't the thing you were gonna fight over.
like you do it because it's like you kind of have to, but
It matters way more for me than it does for you, for sure.
Narset's just drawing cards, right? Don't care.
Do do do. Ooh, interesting. Um, so I think I'm just gonna take this one.
Oh yeah.
And
Good one.
now the wheel turning begins again.
I need to start yielding to this Aether Flux Reservoir trigger.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to yield to the last one potentially, but
Yeah, that's fair.
I was saying that plowing your guy was actually kind of bad for me. You know, you get one life.
Get one extra life, yeah. Could that much closer to potentially going off.
I mean, I
It
would
is
love if you're at 51 at the end of the game and you kill me with the Aetherflux Reservoir. Like
there's
that'd just
probably
be so
math to be
good.
done there, right? Like I
Yeah,
started this turn at 24.
like how many spells you have to cast. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure when I was thinking about it, I'm pretty sure it's like 7 or 8 or something.
yeah,
And I was like, we'll see.
yeah.
I don't think I have much recourse if I'm being honest.
I will be completely honest with you. There was a part of me that wanted to tutor for Gitaxian Probe with Spellseeker, and which like sounds like bananas, but I just think like,
Well, you have DT in hand, right? So
yeah, like
like,
my hand is just so strong that I was like, is it worth it to just know what my position actually is? Like, uh, I will decline to untap your lands.
I do love that about Frantic Search.
Yeah, me too.
Classic. Flutter
So,
Recollection returning Preordain. Interesting. You have 2 cards in hand, so I know it's Snapcaster DT.
mhm.
Um, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Uh, think I do this now.
4 mana. You still have reprieve available. Cryptic Command.
I mean,
Holy.
I have to. I just have to find like the right time to do it, right?
I love that
Like I
this
could have.
is text list. Okay, it's counter bounce. That's what you're.
Yeah, it's counterbounce. Yeah.
Yeah, deal. It's time to launch and load.
Yep.
Um,
The sick thing is like I know your high tide is on the bottom, so I can just like
I know. I've
cryptic
thought about
bounce your
trying to
thing.
find a way to shuffle, like to shuffle it back into my deck in some way, but it just seemed not worth it. At the end of the day, like
I mean, you have DT in hand, like you just have it if you want it, as long as it
yeah,
resolves, right?
that's kind of what I was figuring. Yeah. Gonna cast this here. Okay, it did resolve.
What could it be?
Who could it be? This spell that I did see. Um, and now I get to go get this one and hope that it's good enough. Huh?
Oh. Duh, 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 duh.
The swords is gone. Evoke solitude. Okay, you go to 20, and then you reprieve the other copy.
Yep. Yeah.
Darn.
You get to keep your Narset here, which is like pretty good for you. I guess I
Yeah,
just reprieve one of these copies.
yeah, yeah.
Actually, you have no mana, right?
I have no mana. Yeah,
I'll spell pierce the OG.
fair enough. Yeah, and then you take 18,
And you have the kill in
and
hand
I have to
if it
kill in hand.
resolves.
Yeah. This is a weird game.
Yeah, this is a
I
super
would
weird
describe
game.
this as not the average High Tide versus Jeskai game. Although, like, this is why you play High Tide for the
Yeah,
excitement
I mean, if the
factor.
game goes long enough, I'm just gonna draw enough removal that the
Yes,
game's
you,
gonna be
you get
harder for
enough.
me.
That's the thing that High Tide has always sort of capitalized on is the fact that it gets like virtual card advantage against basically the whole format. Um, I
Yeah, like you're not playing that many artifacts, you're not playing that many creatures that like get removed.
yeah.
Your
Now,
Narset stopped my Undersea draw.
yeah. The fact that like the printing of Narset and Hull Breacher as well have been really nice for this deck. Just it just gives you like another way to win. Oh, I'm getting throned though. This could be good.
I don't know if there's a creature in here that would save me.
Yeah.
I also might whiff.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. That would be like kind of a bummer.
This deck doesn't actually play like that many creatures. I think I'm playing like 15 or something, maybe like
Mm-hmm.
17 creatures. You
Nope,
have to let
sorry.
me resolve this thing.
I know. I think I might have accidentally clicked my recording and dragged something somewhere, but it looks fine still. We're gonna go with it for now. Oh, you wanted that one in your deck still, I think, right?
Probably. I think where I'm at is I kill the Snarset and then wait.
Do you have a lightning
Gain
bolt?
haste?
You played Season Dungeon this turn?
Oh, it doesn't gain haste. I thought it gained
No,
haste.
just gets hexproof. I can't remember. I can't even remember if it gets hexproof till next turn, but it does get hexproof. That's the one I remember. All right. Well, I drew this one.
Awkward. Okay. I have like I have like a 1%er, I think here. Maybe it's a 0.5%.
um. Oh, this is kind of odd. So I guess I do just do this.
I haven't seen Pure Through Depths in so long. That's actually so hype.
Yeah, I think it's good. Um, I was on the fence because like fewer and fewer of your win conditions are gettable with Pure. Like Reservoir and Sentinel Tower are both like um, aren't gettable by Pure. And I saw some lists of people playing like Shimmer of Possibility and Strategic Planning, which I cut in favor of like Lock and Load and some like slightly higher impact card. One card I
Sure,
don't have in
yeah,
this
yeah.
list that I thought about playing is that one from that new one that's like you get to it's 4 and a blue and you draw cards equal to the number of islands you control, then discard 2 cards. Idea it
Oh,
is.
Thrill of Knowledge, I think.
Thrill of Knowledge, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Like
right.
5 mana and you I mean that card, I could see that card being good. I guess the tough thing is like it's 5 mana, draw like 4 or 5 if you're going off on turn 4 or 5,
It's
right?
basically like draw 4, discard 2. And like
Hmm.
that's okay, but it's only okay. Would you like to deafen to talk about our opening hands here?
I don't think I have to talk much. I couldn't keep that last hand for sure, and I definitely can't keep this one.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna deafen to talk about mine for
yeah.
a second. So Sans, one of the things about last game that was like sneakily very good is that you actually really like just having a ton of land drops. And now that I know he's on Jeskai, which is a deck that is not super heavy on pressure, um, I actually think I want a hand that has a lot of lands and gets to play the game. The power of this hand is that you can go like turn 1 under City Sewers, turn 2 cast Demonic Tutor, have High Tide in hand, and if you just have the High Tide in hand, that does color the rest of the game. I think I'll try this one, but I'm pretty trepidatious about it.
Okay, I thought I was gonna mulligan this hand, but I actually think I'm keeping it.
I kept my 7, but I think it's close.
I think my hand is also close, but I think you're supposed to keep it, but you're not like super thrilled, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a functional hand, but
Yeah. It's weird. Like, so now that we both know the matchup, it's very
oh,
like
that
the
it
mulliganing
changes
changes
everything.
drastically, right? I was saying when I was talking about my mulligan that like last time I kept a 5 lander or 4 lander, I think it was, and like against Jeskai, oh my god, this thing again. That's actually pretty good. Like you're probably pretty happy to have a bunch of lands in hand because you just kind of want to like I hit a land drop every turn that game and it was a 12 turn game and I like that was actively instrumental to me winning the game was having 11 lands in play on turn 11.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think you want a bunch of mana in most circumstances because like your win condition is like outmuscling me on the stack,
yes.
and you just want to live through whatever threats I present, right? But I think like if you're looking at it statistically, like Jeskai probably isn't presenting a lot of like really big threats that fast, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah, exactly. The threats that you're presenting are there. Oh, there was a different line available to me there. I could have done. Huh. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if that'll end up biting me. But yeah, like I think you're right. Like you're not killing me that quickly, and the threats that you do have, mercifully, the bout spells interact with them like kind of favorably.
yeah,
So
or they interact in ways where like it's not favorable for you, but time wise it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
bouncing an initiative creature isn't ideal, but like you know my throne is probably not killing you,
yeah. I don't
right?
care about throwing the
Dead 3.
dead three.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? I was gonna say Undercity, but
Yeah.
I knew that was wrong.
Throne of the Undercity probably would have made more sense. Um
I think we're
think I'm gonna
exposing ourselves as being
do
fake D&D players here because that's
this.
definitely oh god.
Yeah.
Although I will say one of the other positives of the more recent printings of more um, yep of more dual lands, like it used to be for a long time that if you just got like wastelanded off of your underground sea and
Oh
then they
yeah,
had
you like
any way to recur it and they got your watery grave, you were just like staring at your hand of demonic tutor tendrils of agony, being like, well, this is the only win condition in the deck. Like
yeah,
the
like
the
you're actually just stone dead.
well, you had to play Blue Sun Zenith, but like unlike in Legacy, where winning with Blue Sun Zenith is like super doable because you just get to like cast High Tide 4 times, and like functionally make infinite mana, like so that either Blue Sun Zenith or Brain Freeze are going to be lethal like almost all the time. In this format, I don't think like there are infinite mana routes, like Palinchron creates infinite mana. Like there are definitely ways that you can get there,
Of
but
course.
it's much harder than it is in other formats for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, getting
The
wastelanded
bottom.
is rough. That's one of the big ways that this deck can struggle. I didn't know,
Wait,
so like I haven't played that much Highlander in the last like year, especially. Like I haven't really touched the format very much until we started talking about playing more online. And when I went and started like rebuilding some of the combo lists, I was just kind of thinking like, how can you play? Yeah, like how can you play these decks with cards like this legal in the
sure,
format?
yeah, like
Like it's
because if
just
you
like,
make 20 mana with High Tide
yeah.
and you get to fourth them, it's like
Well, it's also just like the threats. Like it's the games are so much faster, and it like one of the things like that I noticed like High Tide. I used to play like 14 or 15 counter spells in High Tide. Like you would kind of play a lot. And I think now you can't do that. Like you can't just like tacitly try to be like vaguely interactive. Like the counter spells have to be for like exactly fighting on the stack and nothing else.
yeah,
Um,
like you have to like play more velocity spells because the threats are so much faster and they're like way more efficient.
yeah.
Um one thing I was like I've been thinking of a lot is, and I think we've talked about this, but like I think the reason Moxen and Fast Mana has gotten so much better in this format is because like the threat density is way better. Like the
Hmm.
types of threats that you're playing are way better.
For sure. Okay, so I just resolved the High Tide. Very exciting for me. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
I like felt like tapping out was fine because you're on four lands, and I think killing on four lands is like
It's not easy.
not trivial. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
five lands is actually kind of a different story, but
The conclusion I came to was that it was going to be hard to win the game if I let you untap with the Monarch and an actual threat in
yeah,
play.
yeah.
And so I decided to jam, and
I think
uh,
jamming's correct, which is funny because I also think I'm supposed to jam. Like I think jamming for me is also
oh,
correct.
100%. Like
So like,
I think that your assessment of like it's hard to kill on 4 lads is right. And I don't have like a super obvious path to killing you, if that makes
you
you
also
feel any
didn't.
better.
You also haven't like sculpted a hand, right? So like, it's possible your hand has a lot of one thing, but not like a lot of the other thing.
Well, and from your perspective, like you can be relatively sure that I DT'd for High Tide, but like outside of knowing that I probably DT'd for High Tide, um, I have clipped 6 here. All right, I flipped your
Yeah,
thing
like
away
I don't
again
actually
for
know
you.
what you have.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Well,
Well,
this is bad.
oh yeah. This rules. That's actually
Uh,
so sick.
I kind of hit.
With Windfall.
Well, it's something.
It is something. You do if I don't have a counter spell, you do get 7,
Yeah.
which I don't.
Land, untap.
Oh,
Uh,
turnabout. I
is
see.
this plus mana? Yeah, it is plus mana.
Yeah, it's plus mana, but you can't infinite.
No, I need another High Tide active for it to be infinite. This is one of the aforementioned infinite In
Yeah,
fact, I think
yeah,
it's
because
the
you
only
need to make
one.
12 mana to infinite with Palancron, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, my lands make 8 mana. I could technically make 2 more mana and an extra storm, but it would exile. Well, yeah, I think it's fine. I'm gonna do it. So
I see.
yeah, I can cast the Turnabout again.
I think exiling Turnabout like doesn't matter that much.
No, I don't think so either. Well, and I was thinking, I was just making sure that Windfall wasn't a one that exiled, like shuffled everything back in. It just discards and you redraw.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, land, untap, and now I cast Windfall. Please don't counterspell me.
Oh, I don't have you. Don't worry.
Um, this feels like it ought to be a win somehow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think this is a win. Awkwardly, I don't have enough black mana to be
Yeah, I
able.
think you should have been making black a little bit.
I think you're right, because if I
Like
had, I
just
could
one
just
or
go get
two.
DT and then kill you with DT here, and now I don't think I can do that. So, gonna get High Tide again. Cast High Tide.
And now you have infinite mana.
I do. I think, right? Because these make 12 mana. The only issue
Yes.
is like
No,
I have
you're
infinite mana, but
making
I do it in loops of
yeah.
one.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Which is like a little slow.
I don't know. Do you have blocking ballista in hand?
Oh wait, no. Hold on. I can flood. I can flood a
Oh, there
recollection.
you go. There you go.
And now now the loop is a little better. I make 16. I can
Now
just
you're
tell you
chilling.
what my wing. So I have a Mind's Desire in hand, so I can make infinite mana, infinite storm, desire my whole deck, and
Yeah.
kill you with
Okay.
tendrils. So that
Yeah.
we don't have to make people sit here and watch me
Watch
make
you like
infinite mana.
pick up Palancron in Magic Online.